Hello, today we're going to be talking about relational dialectics theory and interpretive theory. This theory was coined by Leslie Baxter and Mikhail Bakhtin in 1988. So let me ask, have you ever had a secret you wanted to tell a friend, but you're afraid that they may judge you? I think we can all relate to the idea of being conflicted with ourselves and the people that we love. I mean, my husband can't load a dishwasher, but I still love him. What I mean by that is I desire for my husband to be helpful around the house by loading the dishwasher, but I acknowledge that he's helpful in other ways, and I show my appreciation for him through acts of service such as doing the dishes. And that's what this theory touches on, those conflicting push and pull of tensions within a relationship. So, what is relational dialectics theory? Let's define it. This is a theory that describes that within a relationship, there can be contradictory needs and desires that create tension. This theory emphasizes as well how relationships are dynamic and constantly evolving in motion. So, there are four main concepts to this theory, and that includes contradiction, totality, process, and praxis. Let's break down each of these terms. First, let's talk about contradiction. Relationships have inbuilt tension, and this concept is that the extreme contrary has characteristics of the opposite. For example, I desire intimacy with my spouse. I love being around him, but at the same time, I need space to do my homework and be able to study and focus. When we talk about contradictions, we have to define that they can exist within and without the relationship, internal and external. Internal occurs between partners in the relationship, and external can be tension that occurs with the people in the relationship and external factors. An internal example of this tension is my husband always wants cheeseburgers for dinner. Well, I want a salad. So we argue about what to have for dinner. On the contrary, here's an external contradiction example in which my husband and I want to go on vacation to Las Vegas, but my boss denies my PTO request. Now, my husband and I, who are in a couple, have tension with my employer outside of our relationship. The second concept of this theory is totality, and this concept describes the balance and harmony when contradictions unite. Relationships should be viewed as totality, as a whole, to see what contradictions exist and how to address them. The third core concept of this theory is process, and that concept describes how relationships are dynamic, over time, constantly changing. Lastly, we need to define the term praxis, and this is a concept that describes how we behave in a relationship when tension occurs. Either we accept and accommodate another person's needs, or react negatively when tension arises. When we feel the push and pull in relationships, do we react negatively to tension or do we accept and accommodate? Do we argue or do we compromise? So let's talk about dialectal tensions and go over some examples of the common push and pulls that people feel in relationships. Some common examples of opposing tensions people feel in their daily lives may be autonomy versus connection, novelty versus predictability, and openness versus closeness. Autonomy versus connection describes the desire for intimacy and closeness versus the desire for individuality and independence. For example, I like to wear matching or coordinating outfits with my husband in similar colors, but he prefers his own style. Next, let's talk about novelty versus predictability. And that's the desire for stability and routine in your relationship versus the desire for spontaneous and new experiences. For example, my husband wants to go to our regular date night spot, but I want to try the new sushi restaurant in town. And lastly, let's talk about openness versus closeness. This describes the desire for privacy and protection versus the desire for honesty and sharing information. For example, I want to tell my husband I received a bad grade on a test, but I fear if I tell him, he may be disappointed in me.
It was just a little workout. Just stay loose.
You know how I feel about that, Bob. Darn you, we can't blow cover
The
again.
building was coming down anyway.
What? You knocked down a building?
It was on fire, structurally unsound. It was coming down anyway.
Tell me you haven't been listening to the police scanner again.
Look, I performed a public service. You act like that's a bad thing.
It is a bad thing, Bob. Uprooting our family again so you can relive the glory days is a very bad thing.
Reliving the glory days is better than acting like they didn't happen.
Yes, they happened. But this, our family, is what's happening now, Bob. And you are missing this. I can't believe...
So, in that clip that we just watched from the movie The Incredibles, we see Mr. and Mrs. Incredible having opposing tensions in their marriage. Mr. Incredible has some information that he really should be sharing with his wife, but he'd rather keep it secret because he is not supposed to be using his superpowers. They are in witness protection. And so, if he tells his wife, he knows that she will be upset as she is based on the reaction in the clip. Additionally, they are dealing with the tension of novelty versus predictability. While in witness protection, they are living the family life, keeping it cool, calm, quiet, and they definitely have routine. However, Mr. Incredible is really seeking the glory days and wants some excitement in his life, seeking some unpredictable excitements, into which Mrs. Incredible is reassuring him that they cannot have in this current situation. So now that we're able to analyze and detect tensions and contradictions in a relationship, how do we manage those tensions? By four practices: neutralizing, separation, segmentation, and reframing. Firstly, we neutralize. Partners compromise with neither's needs fully being met, neither desire or other end of the tension is truly winning. It's just more of a neutral compromise between partners in which both are satisfied or nearly. Next is separation. This is when one end of the tension is highly favored, and the other is ignored, like a scale. Or alternatively, partners may alternate which end of the extremes wins in the compromise. It be the one partner or the other taking turns where their needs and desires are met. Additionally, we participate in segmentation. And then this is when people decide to separate aspects of their lives into separate spheres to kind of remove some of the tensions between different groups. For example, holidays can be very stressful with blended families, extended families. And so people may segment those part of their lives. Christmas is with the in laws, Thanksgiving is with the parents, 4th of July is with friends, and they segment those aspects to avoid certain tensions. Lastly, and most successful, is the practice of reframing. And this is where opposing ends of a dialectic are viewed as not necessarily contradictory, but rather necessary to support each other. And this requires a lot of creativity with compromise. So, when we apply relational dialectics theory, it can help us define the strength of relationships by how we handle the tension and contradictions. And it details how relationships are really dynamic. By applying what we know about relational dialectics theory, we can explain the changing behavior of people in various interpersonal relationships. Now, let us critique this theory. Is it realistic, practical, and what are the advantages? So, is this theory practical? In my opinion, yes. This theory gives a framework for comparing and analyzing relationships. Once we're able to detect the contradictions, we can better explain partners' behavior. And also, this theory can be applied genders and cultures. Is this theory realistic? Again, in my opinion, yes. Yes, this theory is realistic because it provides that all relationships inherently are built in with the tensions, as it is part of what makes relationships dynamic. Additionally, this theory can be applied to all types of interpersonal relationships, whether it be family relationships, friendly, professional, or romantic. And what positive things has this theory brought to the field of communication? Well, it emphasizes the dynamic nature of relationships, highlights the importance of managing tensions, and provides a framework for analyzing communication. So, again, I ask, have you ever had a secret you wanted to tell a friend, but you were afraid that they may judge you? How did you handle this contradiction with yourself? This push and this pull? Do you tell the truth or do you keep it to yourself? Now that we're aware of tensions, it's important to acknowledge them so we can adapt our communication and better manage our relationships. Here are my resources. Thank you for watching.